So what we are going to cover today is understanding keywords in Google. Oh, that didn't sound good. And beyond. And our sponsors, obviously the Manatee Performing Arts Center, because that's where we are. They've been gracious enough to host this, allow us to be here, and Com Center Virtual Office. And I actually wrote a blog article last month on why working virtual works so well. And the whole concept of working virtual, where you don't have to you're not actually tied to an office, because the chains tend to chafe after a while. The really centers around having the right tools in order to work virtual. Some of those tools are software, some of them are hardware, some of those tools are people. Com Center does an incredible job at providing the services so that you can work virtual. So, special thanks to Com Center for sponsoring the event, and you definitely want to check them out. We're going to cover today, when we talk about keywords, it's one of those things that in any of my presentations, when I mention keywords, people are like, huh? How does that work? Well, that's what we're going to go into today is, answering that, huh? How does that work? In order to do that, we do have to give a little bit of a history lesson on how it came to work the way that it does today. But a keyword is very simply put, a keyword is the word or phrase that people will use when they're searching online. Now, that could be Google, that could be Yahoo, that could be Bing, that could be Facebook, it could be LinkedIn. You can search so many different places, okay? It doesn't matter where you're searching. What we're talking about is the keywords and the actual algorithms of how they work. Once somebody enters in a search query, those keywords that they put in, which on average are the phrase is going to be 4 to 6 words. That's the industry average. Phrase will be 4 to 6 words in length. What happens to it then? And how do you know what people are actually going to be entering into search? So let me ask you, we'll put it this way. When we're in business, how many of us depend on people finding us online in some form or fashion? It's the world we live in, okay? Whether it's on desktop, laptops, mobile device, okay, we all depend on that internet traffic being found online. Well, if you could know what people are going to type into a search when they're thinking about CPA services, promotional products, would it affect how you build your website?
You want to know what they're looking for.
Yeah. If you can understand how they're thinking, what they're going to type in, then it makes a whole world of difference. So I will be showing some examples of some things today. And for starters, a little history lesson. Okay. Google's only been around for 15 years, okay? Seems like, it's hard to imagine a world without Google, but they've only been around for 15 years. And I'm not going to go all the way back to the time when, you entered a search query and then went to go make a pot of coffee while you waited for the results to load. That was actual true internet search at that time. When you'd enter your search query, whatever search engine you were using, anything other than Google, you'd enter your search query and that search engine would literally look around the internet for things that matched what you typed in. That's why it took so long, because they were literally searching the World Wide Web. Okay? I mean, it would take us a while just to run around the block, let alone search all these files online. Google's game changer was that they indexed search. What that meant was when they started Google, they put some servers in their garage. They took the search records of what people were searching. They performed those searches and stored that information on the server. So when you went to Google and you entered a search query, instead of going around the world, it went to Google's server, found that search there, and gave you those results. It was fast. Milliseconds. Everybody loved it. Because, hey, we like things fast, right? I mean, we get upset if we have to wait 3 minutes in line for a meal. Okay? Forget the days of cooking for 3 hours. I mean, we want it in a minute or less. Now, nobody seemed to care about the fact that the search results that you got might be a month old. But that's what it was. Now, their algorithm was watch how frequently something was searched, and the things that were searched more frequently got updated more frequently. Make sense? So Google's giving fast results, everybody else is still slow, and, the internet, I mean, we were still figuring out how to use it. 2006 is kind of when things begin to come of age. This is still before smartphones, okay? So you're not getting into mobile stuff here. There were a lot of AdSense sites, just automated. You could build out a site and have it keyword rich. So when somebody's typing in that search query, you get this site that's just full of ads. Anybody seen those? Garbage. You get one little column in here that's about what you want to read, and everything else is ads. Okay. Anybody remember trying to watch video back in 2006 online? I mean, it didn't really work very good because it wasn't fast enough. Images were hard to index with relevancy. When you'd search for images, you weren't really getting what you were looking for. Back in these days, regardless of what you're searching for, you might dig down 6 or 8 pages to actually find what you wanted. Flash was not something that had any consistency. Lots of stale content, which, when they're only refreshing the server, every 2 weeks, once a month, whatever, of course it's going to be stale. There wasn't really such a thing as a location-based search. Unless if you searched CPA Sarasota, well, unless your whole site was built about CPA Sarasota, it's not going to show up. There was no geotagging, and people weren't trained to think this way yet. Social networks were still kind of catching on. Just wasn't really there. When we move up to 2010, we've got blogs all over the place, writing new content, a lot of them daily. Social networks are dominating the mainstream. By 2010, most people that are online are in some kind of a social network. Videos finally worked, and Flash standards are widely accepted. Facial recognition software was applied to images so that now when you enter a search for an image, they're actually using facial recognition to scan the images so that the images that you get are actually relevant. Okay? So in addition to how that image may be titled, Google's actually scanning it to tell, hey, it's titled a flower, is it really a flower? Okay. And Google was getting better at filtering out the junk sites, those AdSense sites. Nobody liked seeing those. That was just kind of nasty. 2011, Google really comes of age. The Panda updates. Anybody here remember hearing about Panda updates? Yeah. Okay. Before 2011, if it was pretty easy to optimize a site, okay, you could, whatever keywords you wanted, there were a lot of ways that you could build things into the site, so your site's going to dominate. Well, if you've got an SEO guy building a website for your keywords, how likely is it that that website is what this person searching is really after? Highly unlikely, because somebody's paying to get that site to show up. Okay. Well, Google says, hey, we want accurate search results. We don't want people gaming the system. So Google began to, the Panda update basically changed the search algorithm so that they could begin to change the algorithm on the fly. So that when they saw that somebody's gaming the system this way, we can make a change. The biggest example of that happened to JCPenney during Christmas shopping season. JCPenney had hired an SEO company for their all of their products, and any of the products that JCPenney carried, if you did a search online, their products were all over the place. Google looks at the traffic and he sees, okay, here's JCPenney, and all of a sudden, their traffic spikes higher than everybody else's. This is not just the shopping season. So, okay, let's figure it out. How is this happening? Okay, and this kind of comes under, if you've heard the name Matt Cutts, he's the guy at Google that's in charge of the web spam, okay, the junk. Matt Cutts' job is to make sure that when you enter a search in Google, you get accurate, relevant results, what you're really looking for. Okay. So they see this spike in JCPenney, and they go in and they reverse engineer to find out, okay, what were these guys doing to make JCPenney perform better than everybody else? And okay, that's what they're doing. Great. So we're going to de-index JCPenney. Okay. Now I explained what indexing was. So de-indexing means they took all of those pages about JCPenney off the server. They're not there. So all those things that JCPenney's ranking for, not only do they not rank, they don't exist in Google. They updated this algorithm that the methods that JCPenney used to rank initially were negated. Now that meant that everybody else in the world that were using the same techniques that JCPenney did, they didn't necessarily get de-indexed, but those things didn't help them anymore. Now, when Google recognizes those patterns, it actually hurts them. And this was in the middle of the Christmas shopping season. So in early December, JCPenney disappeared from Google. So
it's important to know what not to do.
You're catching on. In search, there's what's called black hat and white hat when it comes to search optimization. Anybody give any ideas what black hat and white hat strategies might be? What that means?
It's just white hats are good things that are going to happen. Black hats are bad things that are going to happen.
The good guys and the bad guys.
Like a white hacker and a black hacker, and
So-
cowboys and Indians.
Exactly. When you look at the search world and you look at people that are optimizing, the guys that are doing things the way that Google wants them done, those are the guys wearing white hats. The guys that are doing the things that Google doesn't want, those are the guys wearing the black hats. Okay? Now, Google does not release a book to say this is what we want you to do. So there are practices that you can be doing that will get you results today. They work. They don't go against anything that Google is saying, and many people will consider it to be a white hat technique. But as Google continues to refine, Google will define that technique as being black hat. So you don't want to look you don't want to try to build your optimization based on practices. You need to build your optimization on the theories, not so much the practices. You need to understand, what is Google's intent? What are they really trying to do? Okay, Google doesn't want you to be able to game the system. They want you to get relevant results. If they can figure out what you're doing, they're going to change the name of that hat from white to black. Period. Always. So it's important to understand what they want and work that way. Okay, so enabling the Panda updates was the way that they were able to start rolling out changes live like this along the way. And you can imagine, okay, JCPenney, middle of Christmas shopping season, to disappear in Google search, okay, in this day and age. Okay, this was a couple of years ago, but it was devastating, okay, devastating. Where is JCPenney financially today? There's sucking air, okay. You lose out on a Christmas shopping season when you're in retail. It's hard to recover. Google Plus was introduced with 60 million users first year. Okay. Everybody familiar with Google Plus?
Is that like the chat? No.
We're all familiar with Facebook.
Right.
We're all familiar with Twitter, LinkedIn. Google Plus is Google's version of social media. Okay. Ironically, there's a lot of people that still don't get Google Plus. But just remember, when we talk about social media, if Google owns it, what are they going to prefer? Their stuff. Okay. Location-based searches begin to actually work. 2011, mobile device space began to be targeted. Because by 2011 now, hey, most people have a smartphone. So we're trying to get into this now. Social media is now included as a ranking factor. Ranking factor is what they call, where you show up in search. Okay, that's your ranking factor. Social media now is part of that ranking factor, all the way back in 2011. Search results are still rather fragmented. This is a time when you're still digging down a couple of pages, but maybe only 3 pages now. Okay. The thing is, with these changes, for an SEO guy, you guys understand what I mean when I say SEO? Okay. An SEO guy is going to have to do 10 times the amount of work to get the same amount of traffic. So in 2010, for a local website, you could pay somebody, $100 a month and get some optimization and expect to rank for things. 2011, he's got to do 10 times the amount of work. What's he going to charge?
10 times
The industry wouldn't support it. So even though in 2010, where your packages were $100 to $500, you roll into 2011, they've got to do 10 times the amount of work. You could do, the prices ran $200 to $1,000. If you're over $1,000, it's a really hard sale. And you think about it, how many businesses could afford $1,000 a month just for your SEO? Okay? Especially if you were paying $100 and actually ranked. 2012 was the biggest game change ever. In January of 2012, there was, don't worry, I'll bring it up closer there for you. For those of you that had a Gmail account, or any Google account for that matter, you would get a little box that would pop up when you log in. It would say, this stuff matters. And you'd see this little, one policy, one Google experience, okay? It's privacy policy, okay? Any online account that you have is going to have a privacy policy. They update them from time to time, right? I mean, sign into an account. You got a privacy policy. You have to accept it. Okay, how many of you read those?
I've never.
Yeah. Well,
Wait a minute, why read them? Because if you're going to have to use it, you're going to have to check the box anyway, because if you say, no, I don't agree, they're going to kick you out.
it's kind of like this. If you don't like Google's privacy policy, everybody have a pen? You hold it up. Hold up a piece of paper. That's your alternative. You know, if you don't like the Gmail privacy policy, quit using it. Well, what are you going to do if you quit using email? You know, so you're absolutely right. You don't really have much of a choice. Well, here's the thing. When you read this, you know, it says we're getting rid of over 60 different privacy policies across Google and replacing them with one that's a lot shorter and easier to read. Okay, accept. You know, I mean, right there, okay, got it. You know, read policies now. Nobody's going to read it. Our new policy covers multiple products and features, reflecting our desire to create one beautifully simple and intuitive experience across Google. This stuff matters. So please read our updated Google privacy policy and terms and service, blah, 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 blah. These changes will take effect on March 1st. Okay, so this came out in January of 2012. Well, let me read one part. This is, if you would have actually read the policies, okay, this is part of what you would see. If you're signed into Google, we can do things like suggest search queries, which they do now, okay? As you type in a search query, they're suggesting what you should search. Or tailor your search results based on the interest you've expressed in Google+, Gmail, and YouTube. We'll better understand which version of Pink or Jaguar you're searching for and get you those results faster. Now, think about that just for a second.
How did they know that?
What are they going to be doing in your Gmail, your YouTube, your Google Plus to tell what shade of pink you want? Or when you're searching for Jaguar, are you looking for pictures of the animal or are you shopping for a new car? That's getting pretty personal. In the past, when you read the short version, is in the past when you read a privacy policy, it would say, hey, you know, all this stuff we're gathering, we're not going to use it. This one said, all this stuff we've been gathering for the last 10 years, we're going to start using it. So, in Google, you have all of your contacts. You have social media connections. Google is looking at, and if you say, well, I'm not signed in, how many of you have a smartphone? How many of you are signed in to that smartphone with a Gmail account? Do you ever sign out of it? No, it won't work, will it? So everything that you're doing on that phone, or then you go to your computer and, you know, you open up your email, right? You're signed in. Then you go to Google, everything you're doing online, Google's monitoring. They're literally reading your emails. This is why when you, if you're having a conversation with somebody about buying a new Jaguar, as a conversation through email or social media, that's how they know whether to show you a car or a cat. Ready to go back to a pen now? This is about understanding how this stuff works so that you can make it work for you, okay?
I want to try that. I'm going to send an email about buying a Jaguar car dealership and see if that stuff's going to show up.
It will. If you have a conversation with somebody about, here's one you can try that's really, really easy. Go to Amazon. Pick out a set of golf clubs, any golf clubs. Take the link to those golf, just the link, okay? Email that to somebody and say, hey, I think you might like these clubs. And see what kind of ads start showing up in your email account, everywhere, okay?
Yeah, but Amazon has just announced too that they're going to start sending out things that people they think that you want. That they.
Yes, they've actually they're taking the search algorithms a step further and beginning to pre-ship what they think you're going to order. The same way that Google is suggesting what they think you're going to search. To bring you up to speed, we've kind of gone through some of the history of how Google got to the place that it is, so that we can understand how these keywords actually work. Okay. And we're at the really, really scary part right now, where we realize Google knows everything about us, every conversation we're having, everything we search online, they know about it. In 2013 got even more interesting with Hummingbird. All of the updates previous were updates to the search algorithm. In 2013, the Hummingbird was a totally new algorithm. So if you can imagine, you got a 15-year-old car, and for 15 years you've been working on that car, changing parts. And then on the 15th birthday, you put a brand new engine in it. Is it going to be different? Okay. And we're not talking a new motor that was 15-year-old technology. We're talking replacing a 15-year-old technology with current technology. Okay? All the bells and whistles. That's what Google did on their 15th birthday with Hummingbird. What is Google's goal in search? Provide accurate, relevant search results. Okay? And what have people been focusing on in SEO? Keywords. It's all been about keywords. So Google just absolutely changed everything. Now, keep in mind, back in 2012, the last slide there, when everything began to go social, about half of the SEO companies in the United States went out of business because they could one of two reasons. Either they could no longer produce results for their customers, or they could no longer afford to produce results for their customers. So there's not nearly as many companies out there doing SEO as there used to be. 2013 with Hummingbird really upset a lot of people. And you're talking a much smaller playing field. These are the people that really should know what they're doing, right? I mean, if they survived 2012, when everything went social, they ought to know what they're doing, right? Well, I showed you what Google said in their own privacy policy in January 2012, right? At the ASI show in Orlando, the guy that was paid to present on how to do SEO, his words were that social media search, as in social media activity affecting your search results, is still 2 to 3 years down the road. Now, didn't we just read in Google's own text that it's been happening since January of 2012? And in January of 2014, he's saying it's still 2 to 3 years down the road. Okay? Now, the guy's getting results not because of what he's doing, but in spite of what he's doing. But here's a guy, we talked about, you used to be able to pay somebody $100 to $500. This guy doesn't even get it, and yet he's still successful. His rates start at $5,000 a month. How many can afford $5,000 a month for SEO? Oh, gee, I'm not seeing any hands. Okay. So Hummingbird, 2013. Whole new search algorithm. It launched September 27th on Google's 15th anniversary. Kind of. They announced it on September 27th, and then they said, actually, we've been running this since back in August. We just didn't tell you. Oops. PageRank. There's PageRank, search rank. Your search rank is where you show up in search. PageRank is a rating system of 1 to 10 that Google gives a website based on the authority of that website. So, you take a website like irs.gov, that's a 10. Okay? You build a new website about your cat Fluffy, that's a 1. Okay? Most websites out there are like a 3 to 4. When you start getting more authority, or you're a university or something, those are the ones that they're usually your .gov, your .org sites that are 8 and above. Okay, a retail commercial type website, it's really hard for you to get even above a 6. Well, prior to 2013, that was a big deal in where you showed up. If you enter a search term and your page rank is an 8, nobody can compete with you because you're the elephant in the room. Okay. Well, now page rank is only a small part of the algorithm. It's only a small thing that they consider, because how big of a website and how long you've been around, what does that really have to do with the likelihood of whether or not you're what somebody's actually searching for? Nothing. It might affect it, because if you've got a page rank of 8 and you're really talking about the topic that somebody's searching for, okay, you're going to weigh heavier than a website talking about the same thing that is only a page rank of 2. I don't want to go too far on it, but just know that all the things that people have been doing before, the things that pushed all the SEO companies out of the picture, now it's a much more level playing field. Because the big guys, Google doesn't say they're big anymore. Now everybody's coming to the table the same. So that's a good thing, if you know how to use it. Anchor text, no longer relevant. This is what people misunderstand when they say that keywords don't matter anymore. Does everybody know what anchor text is?
Not exactly.
Okay. It's very, very simple. When around anywhere on the internet, if you see a word or a phrase that is hyperlinked back to a website, those words are called anchor text. Back in the day, if your site is all about CPA Sarasota, if that's your phrase, okay, which when we talk about keywords, we're usually talking 1 or 2 word phrases. But how long is the average phrase? The actual search query, how long are they on average? 4 to 6 words. Nobody talks about 4 to 6 word phrases, even though that's what people are searching. Because the end user is not thinking the same way that the business owner is thinking. Okay? So that's an issue there. But if you're all about CPA Sarasota, if that's what you're trying to rank for, then everywhere you can on the internet, you're going to try to get links back to your site that say CPA Sarasota, and then that becomes a hyperlink back to your site. Okay? That's anchor text. In the industry, that's called link juice. Okay? That was a great thing. Over the last 2 years, Matt Cutts, anybody remember who Matt Cutts is?
Google search.
In charge of Google's web spam. Okay? Getting accurate, relevant search results. For the last 2 years, he's been telling people, listen, you need to be careful what links you got coming back to your site, because most of them are doing more damage than good. You go to an SEO company, and what's the first thing they want to talk about? Building links back to your website, okay? Because they're not looking at what Google's looking at. So when Google said anchor text is no longer relevant, the industry took that to say, oh, keywords don't matter anymore. Does that say keywords don't matter anymore? No. Google wants accurate, relevant search results. Link building more negative than positive. Search results now are much more relevant based on your interests. Okay, Google's been doing this now for 2 years. Google has been looking at your search preferences and the search preferences of your contacts and the conversations that you're having to find out what your interests are. So they already have 2 years worth of data on everybody since they've been social. But actually, they have 15 years worth of data on you based on how long you've been in Google. So that's the history lesson. This is how it works today. So we can apply some of this. User begins to enter a search query. Start typing it in. Okay, we've all been there. Google suggests queries based on the 2012 update, okay, where it's called Google Suggest. Now Google revises your search query. Okay, you pick one, you type it in, you hit enter. Google actually changes it, rearranges it if they think they need to, based on what your interests are. Okay? How weird is that? I mean, I just this morning I was doing some research on a Swiss-made porch watch movement, and Google literally changed my search query. It tells you that, but how many read that when Google says, put something else in there? We're showing you results based on this. Anybody read that?
What did it change it to, just out of curiosity?
It changed quartz to it changed the word quartz to a different spelling of quartz that actually has a different meaning. Change the word. Well, in a Swiss watch movement, the kind of quartz you're talking about is kind of important, because it determines whether you're talking about an accessory on the watch or what's controlling the watch. Yeah, kind of a big deal. And of course, we talked about that Google's looking at your emails, your search history, and your connections.
Just Eric, real quickly, if I'm not in Google, if I'm using AOL or Hotmail or something like that, does Google still look in there if the Google's on a computer?
That depends. There was actually a big lawsuit last year, because if you're in Yahoo and you're doing a search, if you have a Yahoo account, you're not logged into. If you're not logged into Google, Google can't do most of these things. Okay. But if you have a Gmail account and you're in Yahoo right now, and you're using Yahoo Mail, not Gmail, okay, but you're logged in because you've got an Android phone, or you're logged into YouTube or whatever, okay, you're actually in Yahoo Mail here. But you've been conversing with somebody that has a Gmail account about those new golf clubs, and you go to Google, then yes, they're reading your email. They can read that conversation, because now, as soon as you're conversing with somebody that has a Gmail, now you're in their privacy policy applies. If you're not conversing with anybody that has a Gmail account, well, no, they can't read your email, and they can only read certain ones. Well,
they know which ones they're going to read.
Considering Google is 70% of search, considering that Android is over 60% of the smartphone operating systems, and in order to log in to an Android phone, you're logging in with a Google account. It's pretty hard to have a conversation with somebody electronically and not involve Google. Okay, so I know people that really work hard to try to lock themselves out of the system. Okay, whatever. Okay, so you're completely logged out of Google. Well, you haven't logged out of NSA, so I mean.
And they read everything, period, they don't care. They're just reading it, so.
I mean, NSA actually goes so far as the infrared, the eye that reads your remote control on your TV at home can actually capture black and white images. And if you have a Wi-Fi connection, which most even televisions have that now, even if you're not connected to the internet, NSA connects with radio waves that go through buildings and everything, so that they can capture those images. So you can't log out of the system. It's just not practical today. So Google's looking at all this stuff, and yeah, not everything's Google, okay? But yeah, I've got it listed later on, and if it works in Google, it works other places too, okay? We're talking about how to use keywords, not how to protect ourselves or whatever. That's just not what the conversation is today. So if we're trying to understand how keywords work, know that 70% of the search is done in Google. This is what happens. Google's reading the emails, the search history, and the connections. Google reads, when they're indexing the sites now, they're no longer just reading anchor text. The anchor text that's on your website, or the anchor text of the links coming in, knowing that the links coming in are probably doing more damage than good, but they're actually reading the website to see what is the website about and how does this relate to the search query. So now it's more about phraseology and well-written sites, interesting sites. And that's what Google's serving up results based on. How did this happen? I'm just going to highlight a few of these. I mean, we've danced around a lot of this. 38 million people in the U.S. aged 13 to 80. So the purchasing decisions are influenced by social media. $1 million people view customer service related tweets every week, with 80% of them being critical or negative in nature. This is the one you're going to love. 1.23 billion people are active on Facebook each month. Okay? And I saw that and I'm like, 1.23 billion. How many people is that actually? Well, for comparison, there's 1.35 billion people in China. There's 1.23 billion in India. So basically, it's like the entire country of India is on Facebook. Okay? Give you an idea how many people. Anybody know how many people are in the United States?
100 million.
313.9 million people. Wow. That's how big Facebook is.
4 times bigger than the U.S.
So, if Google's end game, if Google's goal is to provide accurate, relevant search results, doesn't it make sense that they're going to be more concerned with where you're spending your time online, social media, where all the conversations are happening, your social media, your email? They want to know what's happening here, because that's where they're going to be able to provide better, more accurate, more relevant search results. Are you with me? I mean, they're reading conversations. Conversations. This is what Google's reading. Conversations in social media. They're reading the actual articles, the articles that you're writing on your website that people are finding interesting and relevant and sharing on social media and talking about in social media. That's what Google wants to show. It wants to show what people find interesting.
Can't we just hire Google and get rid of that site?
Yeah.
I think that's interesting.
Just take higher salaries.
Now, we talked about, the whole Google Plus thing, because if Google has one, it's going to be preferenced. Google predicted that they would have 400 million users by the end of 2012. Well, by the last count was in October 2013, 540 million active users, 300 million users active in the stream. How many people are there in the United States?
319 million.
So, how many in this room are using Google Plus?
Using or?
Yeah, using. It says active users in the stream. Okay.
I have a Google Plus account. but I really don't use it.
So if we want to tie into what Google's doing, if we want to be able to start getting an edge on people, don't you think Google Plus is going to be important? And YouTube? I mean, Google's going to give a lot more preference to that. You get a Google Plus one on your website or an article, it's like a bag of gold, man, to Google. And isn't that what we care about? If 70% of the search is going to happen in Google, don't we want their interest? So what do we do now? Google search suggestion. And I put Google and Yahoo and Bing up here because Google's 70%, but if it works in Google, it works. How many of you are familiar with where Yahoo's search results are coming from currently? Bing. So you've got Google providing 70% roughly. 28% is divided between Yahoo and Bing, which that's pretty much Bing. Okay. Now Yahoo's talking about they want to get back in the game, and good for them. We need more competition. How many people are familiar with the 80-20 rule in business? Okay. How effective do you think you would be if you focused on the 28% over here? I couldn't survive. Not when 70% of it's over here. So Google search suggestion. Keyword research starts with Google suggestion. That's where it has to start now. You have to get into the mind of understanding not just what people are searching, but how are people determining what they're going to search. A big part of that is Google search suggestion. Because we all know how effective suggestive selling is, right? I mean, how many times when you're waiting in that long line for 3 minutes for your lunch or dinner, when you were driving out, how many of you were thinking about the extra things you were going to buy? You weren't. How many of you bought them when they were suggested? 80% of the time you will. 80-20 rule. We've got to find the keyword queries that will be suggested. Analyze the suggested queries for the following. Relevance. Not all of them are going to be relevant to what you do. We've got to look at the traffic. Not all of them are going to have traffic. We don't care about something. Let me give an example. I've got a client that they'd worked with 3 other local companies for their search optimization. They had, between working with the companies and their management staff, they had come up with over 30 keyword phrases that this is what we're all about. And after several years of working with 3 different local companies through the years, they absolutely dominated the search results. They had it was an 86% exposure online on Google for those terms. Okay, so that, which means there's an 86% chance that if anybody searches any of those terms, they're going to see their website in a prominent place. Okay, 86% is incredible. For 36 keywords, that's a lot of keywords. Those keywords combined with all their variations, all total had 76 searches per month in the entire United States in their local company. So they've spent tens of thousands of dollars to dominate Google for 76 searches a month. 76. Woo!
Was it $1 million product?
No.
I think I noticed that.
No.
Product, maybe.
No.
Local company that can't produce it in other places.
This is a company that was getting about 500 hits on their website every month. Most of those hits were people actually typing in the name of the facility so that they could get the address and phone number. Okay. We set up the Google map listings, Google Plus Local, so that when somebody searches in the name and all they want is the address and the phone number, they don't have to go to the website for that. They get that right there from the map listing. It's a lot faster. It's what people really want. Okay? So we eliminated 80% of the traffic to the website with the Google Plus map listing. You might say, well, shame on you. No. You need to show Google that your website is relevant to search. If somebody only wants directions, if they only want your phone number, how relevant is that to your services? It's not. Getting them to go to your Google Plus map listing is like gold, because now they're going to a Google property. Yay! That's awesome. We restructured the site, redid the SEO, and now they're still getting about 600 hits a month, and 80% of those are for their relevant terms. Make sense? Because you have to understand what people are going to search and then build your site around it. So you've got to have traffic, and then you want to look at the competition. So we're starting with Google suggestion, find the queries that are going to be suggested, and analyze them for relevance, traffic, and competition. Now, I'm going to tell you, you can come up with your own keyword phrases. You can dream them up, and you can put them into Google's keyword tool, and you can analyze the relevance, the traffic, and competition. Go for it. I'm going to show you why you're probably not going to get the real jewels, okay, by doing it that way. Plus, it's going to take a lot of time. Okay, so we're going to start here, and we start typing, and Google's going to suggest. We need to find out, with your phrases, remember 4 to 6 word phrases, what is Google going to suggest? Because I was going to type in, how does Google search work? You can see I'm not even going that direction. Ooh, how does Google make money? Hey, that's pretty cool. Fire suggestion. Here's another one I love. I start typing in hot apple. Hot apple. And Google's showing me stuff about apple cider, and, apple pies. But I was thinking of a new iPod. Wait a minute. It's not going where I want it to. That's kind of a big deal, isn't it? Okay. There's and let me back up here. If this seems tedious, it is. I mentioned in the blast that there's a new software tool that we're going to be releasing. We're actually in the development stage of a web-based software that you'll put in your keyword, like CPA. You'll put in your location, like Sarasota. And it will auto-populate a bunch of long phrases. And you'll look through the phrases and you'll say, okay, well, this is my direction, this is what I'm looking for. And there are wildcards in there. You'll select that word or that phrase, and the software will run it through these searches. And the wildcards, it'll run it through with an A and see if Google suggests anything. It'll run it through with that wildcard as a B and see if Google suggests anything. It'll run it. So when you look here at hot apple cider, okay, it's going to run it with an A. It's going to run it with a B. It's going to one letter at a time, all the way through the alphabet. That's going to generate some phrases you never thought of. You would never think of them. Okay? Now, this isn't going to tell you how much traffic there is on them. Some of them aren't going to be relevant. But now you're getting inside the mind of Google to see what Google's actually going to suggest. Okay? You will literally, from your one keyword phrase, you may generate 1,000 to 3,000 keyword phrases.
Reverse engineering of Google.
Yes. This is actually tied in to Google Suggest. Google Suggest is the software that does this, and we've literally tied directly into Google Suggest. So we're getting this from Google. This is not something that we're trying to mimic, but as Google makes updates in Google Suggest, the software is updated because it's pulling directly from Google Suggest. How many of you think that would be beneficial in finding what traffic is going to come to your website? Okay? Because that's where it all starts. You need to, if you know what people are going to search, well, now you can do something about it. Okay? Well, this is just what Google is suggesting to people. The next step is we need to get the actual traffic, the search volume, and relevance, okay? Relevance you're going to determine because you're going to look at those phrases and you're going to say, I don't like that one. Okay, that's up to you. But Google's the one that's going to tell you, has anybody ever seen this page on Google? Okay. This is part of Google AdWords. It's free. Everybody can have a Google AdWords account. And it used to be that there was a whole separate page for Google AdWords keyword tool, and that's gone. So a lot of people think that Google quit doing keywords. They didn't. They buried it. This is where it is. Okay. If you do traffic estimate, that's based entirely on paid ads. This is not what we're looking for today. We're looking at search volume for listed keywords, or we're not even concerned about the groups right now. We're looking for the search volume. So you literally, you'll take those keyword phrases, whether you come up with them yourself or if you use our tool, which for coming here today, you're actually when we release it, you'll actually get a free trial of the software. You can try it out. If you like it, great. No, you can tell you why you don't like it. You'll paste those keywords into that tool, into the keyword tool, and this is what Google's going to give you. Okay, there's your keywords up there that we pasted in, and this is from an actual client that I did a Google AdWords campaign for. Now, we're a Google engaged agency, so I actually have a team at Google that I work with. When we're building out an AdWords campaign, Google actually finds, they say, okay, these are the keywords you want to use. They know what keywords are driving traffic in AdWords. They know that in AdWords, okay? So it's all based on historical data. Google's going to build it out. So now you get an AdWord campaign that starts working day one. So they built out this campaign for me for a used car dealer in Bradenton. Well, I ran through my software that we're developing and came up with a list of keyword phrases based on used cars. Okay? And you look at the list here, when you put it in, you can click on the different columns here and Google will sort it out. The average monthly searches, this is in the United States, okay? The competition, this is how many people are competing online for that word in Google AdWords. The suggested bid, and there's a lot of other things that you can show. These three here are the ones that we're concerned with, okay? Now, you look here, here's a phrase, used cars for sale, that has 450,000 searches a month. The next one, how to buy a used car, only has 6,600. Well, hey, if I had 6,600 hits a month, that'd be cool. eBay used cars, 3,600. If you're a used car dealer in Bradenton, would you even think about doing anything mentioning eBay in your ads? You're not selling on eBay. But people are actually searching on eBay. A lot of them. Does this part make sense? This first column tells us how many times it's being searched. The second column tells us how much competition there is for that term. High number on average search, good thing. Low number on competition, good thing. You're usually going to find some of your best phrases are usually the ones, if you're doing SEO on your website, you want to look for words that actually have traffic and have low competition. How much traffic do you need? If a term has 100 searches a month and it has low competition, you can rank for that pretty easily. An extra 100 searches, 100 hits to your website, even if you only got half of them. Anybody like that? That'd be cool. Now, if you're doing ads, you don't care so much about the competition. You're just looking at the search volume. With me so far? In that AdWord campaign that I built out, that one phrase, used cars for sale, keep in mind most of the rest of these, this includes all the keywords that I came up with and all the keyword phrases that Google came up with. In a 30-day period, they had a total of 366 clicks on their ads. 144 of them were that one phrase. The next highest was, well, actually, you see 36 because I moved that into another category. Okay, so there was actually 180. The next highest was 22. One keyword phrase, 180 clicks, the next highest 22. The next highest 19, 9, 7. You see how quickly it drops off. Understanding what Google's suggesting to people, that's the real goal when it comes to search. But then you have to refine it because, remember, I told you that tool generated a few thousand keyword phrases. Well, all I did was, select them all. Control A, copy, Control C, Control V, pasted them into Google, and Google told me which one to use. I picked the top 8, and they all had traffic. Because out of the ones that I put in there, used cars for sale, used car dealerships, used car dealership, no credit used car lots, 1, 2, 3. The top 4 keyword phrases came from my software. So without that, you have 7 clicks. Would you be excited about 7 clicks in a month?
Okay, so if I have a car dealership in Bradenton, I don't want people clicking through if they're in Alaska.
True, and this happens to be AdWords, and in your AdWords you can select geographically where your ads are going to show up. Okay. Now, for your actual website, if you optimize your site for used cars for sale, one of the pieces in Google's algorithm is geotagging. So even though if you're in Bradenton, Sarasota, St. Pete, and you type in used cars for sale, and your used car lot is in number 1 for used cars for sale, if your device, whether it's a desktop, laptop, mobile device, Google, from your IP address or from GPS tracking, Google knows where you are. So if you're in this area, you're going to rank number 1. Not because of where you are. I'm saying if for other reasons you'd rank number 1. If the person searching is in this area, they see you. If they're in Alaska, they don't. And you don't have to do anything about that. You used to have to actually enter, the term Bradenton, Sarasota as one of your keywords. Google does that for you now. They're working to get more accurate, relevant results. When's the last time you went on Google, searched for something local, and saw results that were not relevant? It doesn't happen. Google is doing that for you. Okay? Now that you've found relevant keywords, you need to incorporate them everywhere, especially social media. Because how does Google know what is interesting to somebody when they search? What do they base that on? I told you. Does anybody remember?
Social media.
The social media activity, emails. Now, you can't make people email back and forth about what you're doing. But if you know what a good keyword phrase is for you, you've identified a keyword phrase that's relevant to you, it has traffic, use it. When you post something on Facebook, or you're going to be posting it on Google Plus because that's their playground, okay? You need to be there. Incorporate your keyword phrase. And oh yeah, that URL that goes back to that page that's not necessarily optimized for that one phrase, okay? That's what doesn't necessarily matter anymore. Now you need a whole article that's talking about that keyword phrase. So it's not that keywords don't matter. It means they matter even more. Do you see that? You can't just mention the keyword phrase and be okay. Not like you can just mention it 6 times on your page and Google says, hey, you rock. No, it has to read properly. You have to actually be talking about that keyword phrase. And it's okay now if you're moving words around because Google's going to do that anyway. Even further, with my search that I had there for hot apple, if I in fact was searching for an apple pie recipe, I can have, if I'm typing in hot apple pie, you can have a website that talks about that pie coming steaming out of the oven. It's hot. You could talk about Granny Smith, Macintosh, Red Delicious. Those are apples. Never mention hot, never mention apple, and still get your website to rank for hot apple. Now, since Hummingbird, now somebody else comes along and writes a similar article, and they actually mention hot, they actually mention apple, they're going to outrank you. But you can still get traffic without actually even mentioning the exact keyword because Google is looking at the intent now, whereas it used to be just the exact keyword phrase. Make sense?
So when I meet somebody new, and I send them an email saying it was nice to meet you and a little bit about our conversation, and then somehow offer my services and mention that keyword phrase, I just put it into their Google email, and they'll start getting.
And you'd either be one smart one.
Okay.
Yeah. This is why you want to have a signature in your email that includes your social media profiles, a link to your website, so that that's in their email. Okay, you're emailing them, and you're emailing them a link to your website, you're emailing them your social media profiles. So now, if they've had a couple conversations back and forth, and they go to search for a CPA, you're much more likely to show up because of the conversations that you had, because your website is showing up in their email. Yeah. Yeah, and if they happen to search a keyword phrase that you've conversed about, okay, Google's going to read that email. Scary like it or not, they're going to read that email, and if that keyword phrase is relevant website in there that is relevant to the keyword phrase, and they go to do a search, you better believe you got way more search preference than anybody else, because that's like, if you can imagine, Google has drawn a bubble around everybody, and they want to know what that person wants. When you can get that conversation going in their email and their social media with your keyword phrase, your URL pointing back to your page that's actually talking about this, we're talking quality content here, but now you just put yourself in their back pocket.
Because I touched them once.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know this is really on the freaky scary side, but you've got to look past that to realize, to understand is a better word. You've got to understand what Google's trying to accomplish. If you know that Google is trying to drill down to what it is that you're actually conversing about and your friends are conversing about, what is it that you already want? If you understand that, then you can produce quality content around those phrases, around that content, and get into that conversation stream. You will get traffic. You will. And oh yeah, one of the, no matter what you're doing in Google, one of the large pieces of the algorithm is your paid ads. It's kind of like, FDOT doesn't really like you driving across the skyway without paying a toll. Okay. Incorporate your keywords everywhere.
I actually read an article this morning that said paid ads is jumping way up. Even if you do a campaign for a month, it'll keep you up there for a month.
It's about relevance. Google's in the business of making money. That's what they're in the business to do. Providing search just happens to be something that they do. They don't make any money when you just rank and people go to your website and you didn't generate any revenue from it. Well, if you do paid ads, cool. You're actually giving them money directly. Or if you're sending some of your traffic to your Google map listing that's full of Google ads, cool. Google likes that. If you're getting traffic through YouTube, where Google gets paid for ads, cool, good for you. Google likes those things. But if you're trying to stay outside of the system, Google doesn't like you. And you're going to see that in your search results, your search ranking.
It's no different than anybody else.
You're absolutely right.
You just got to know how to play their game.
If you think, how many of us like to do business with people that do business with us? Google's no different. Except that in the last 3 years, Google has made more business purchases, business transactions. Basically, they've been involved in more business transactions, as in like buying or funding businesses in the last 3 years than anybody. They're big. They're actually, you would think, if Google's going to provide funding for a business, you would think that it might be at the startup phase. Google's actually moved to the point now where they're one of the largest large phase funders for companies. They're not looking for companies that need $100,000. They're looking for companies that are in the third and fourth stage that they need, a few $1 million. That's where Google is today. So even spending, $50 a month in paid ads is going to make a big difference. I have a client literally down the street, a fence company, that we started doing paid ads about a year and a half ago. And at the time, 75% of his business came from paid leads online. Okay. He took some of that money and started spending it on Google and with me. He's spending the same amount online. Okay. When we first started working, his ads were costing $12 to $15 per click. Very competitive industry. Okay. And we were generating 10 to 20 clicks a day. By the end of the year, we were generating 20 to 30 clicks per day. Sometimes up to 50 or 60, but usually around 20 to 30. Same budget. Spending the same amount of money. And we're getting 20 to 30 clicks a day. Okay?
How many conversions?
He runs about a 20% conversion. As far as 20% of the clicks actually call, and 20% of the calls are closed. Actually, he says he runs closer to 80% closed. Most people don't. I mean, because what happens is even though they're saying they're closing 80%, there's a large percent of them that they'll write off and say, well, it's not our customer. Okay. So they really end up closing about 20%. Okay.
That's one order a day, basically.
Yeah.
Not the size of the order. Okay.
$5,000 average order size.
So take home 20% of that
Now,
a day.
towards the end of as we move past the 1 year point, during that time, we also built a new website. And with the new website, we went 30, 40 clicks a day. Same budget. But now we started moving into the $40,000 and $50,000 jobs. So not only have we doubled our traffic, but we've moved from $5,000 jobs to $40,000 to $50,000 jobs. Okay. Then one of the things that happens in the internet is it doesn't work linear. Okay. You'll be moving along and all of a sudden you'll get a job. You move along and you get a job. Okay. Because that's just the way that it works. Things connect. You're always testing things, and you'll have a combination of things that connect. You move to another level. You keep testing. Things connect. You move to another level. We're at a year and a half, moving in towards the 2 year point. No, about a year and a half, I guess. And we're running about 180 clicks per day now. Same budget. Actually, I take that back. We've lowered the budget. We're at about 75% of the budget that we were. And we were happy when we were getting 10 to 20. Now we're getting close to 200. We actually have days we hit 200. Most days we're at about 160.
Same closing, same relevancy.
Yeah. The entire office structure, he's had to hire new people to handle the volume. It's just, they're working 7 days a week to keep up. Yeah, you have to, if you can understand what Google, you'll never really be able to get inside the mind of your customer on day one. Okay? But if you can break down what Google is going to recommend to your customer, then you can analyze and find the things that are going to have traffic, okay? And in time, with testing, you'll be able to determine what's in the mind of your customer. so that your conversion rates are higher, your click-through rates are higher. Anyway, any other questions? I know a lot of it is really kind of gray and ethereal and out there, weird stuff, but it doesn't have to be.
I will make one comment. A company you mentioned earlier wanted to do a story on me because I was getting 30,000. I peaked out at 30,000 hits on my website, but I was averaging about 12 to 15,000 pages looked at average time on my website. They were told no, we wouldn't do the story. They said why not? And they said because it wasn't driving traffic. It hits where nobody could tell me why I was getting that many hits, but it was not converting into any business whatsoever. And they couldn't even tell me what was going on. So, again, that was back with the keywords and everything else that was hit.
It's a real issue. It really is. I've got a client right now that we're 2 weeks into an AdWords campaign. And I know we're talking about AdWords a lot. It's not that this is not necessarily about AdWords, but AdWords is one of the best ways to really see real-time analytics of what's really happening with your keywords. It's the best place to test your keywords, okay? Started the campaign 2 weeks ago, and it clicked off, 17 clicks a day, 30 clicks a day, 50 to 60 clicks a day. We're in 2 weeks, we're running 50, 60 clicks a day on the same daily budget without conversions yet, which, okay, we're only 2 weeks in, not a problem. We're already adjusting, analyzing, and changing because we know, 2 weeks in, we already know the keyword phrases that are bringing the traffic in. Okay, if I know the keyword phrases that are driving the traffic in, guess what? We've already created a new landing page with, the big red button, tell me more. That page is all about the variations of the top 3 keyword phrases. I want conversions. I don't just want traffic. I want conversions. I want relevant traffic. Because if my client's not making money from the work that I'm doing, he's not going to keep paying me. So, I know. What's up with that?
But you're doing that. I thought he was doing that out of kindness of his heart.
No, that doesn't happen anymore.
Most of us don't have a heart.
Not since 2005.
Well, that was, and that was the funny part about it because at that time I owned a franchise, and the franchise, couldn't answer the question. The company that was building their website and working with me, nobody could answer that question. And, it's disheartening when, they're telling you all these great things.
It's a lot simpler than what people might try to make it, because if people are coming to a website and they're not doing anything, they're not finding what they expected to find. So either it's not relevant, it's either the wrong stuff, or it's not interesting, or if it's a retail site, you either got the wrong stuff at the wrong price, the wrong presentation.
It may be overwhelming.
It all breaks down to interesting and relevant. Okay? Interesting, relevant. That's it. Overwhelming can many times happen, especially in the promotional industry. You've got millions of products. Okay? Well, how do you choose? Did you know that people really can't choose between more than 3 items? They can. And yet, if you show them less than 3 items, if you only show them 1 item, they can't make a decision. At 10 items, they're frozen. They don't know what to do. At 1 item, They don't engage. Very rarely. Human nature likes a good, better, best. In multiple industries that I've worked in, with closing ratios that run about 20%, I've had closing ratios at 80% because of a very simple principle. Now, this is sales. This is off keywords, but it actually applies. Because in order to get somebody to buy something right now today, you have to show them 3 things. One of them has to be exactly what they asked for. One of them should be their best option, the best thing for them. And the third one should be somewhere in between, a happy medium. When you do that, almost nobody will pick what they asked for. What actually drove them to your site, what they actually came there for, is not what they're going to buy. I got this in my mind. I know exactly what I want. You know, that would work so much better. But I don't want that quantity. I don't want to spend that much. You know, whatever. And you know that's a happy medium. I like that. They have in their mind one thing. Google suggests. Okay? Understanding the keyword that's going to drive them there. The loss leaders. The grocery store's been doing this for forever. Okay? The one thing, you know, that gets you in the store, okay, you're there. And then you're going to, depending on the individual, you have people that they're always going to buy the best of everything. And when you show them the best option, that's what they're going to buy. That's 20% of the people. 80% of the people are going to choose the happy medium. When we have my family has a bait and tackle store. And when people come into the store, they come in there to buy shark. That's what they're there for. If I go around front and I start talking to people, and I say, hey, by the way, since you're here, we've got some things on sale. We got this on sale, this on sale. It's only on sale this weekend, so check it out. Guess what they buy? Other stuff. Other stuff. Having something on sale, ridiculous prices. Interesting, relevant stuff. Oh yeah, I need that. But I'm going to buy this, and this, and this. If you don't have the conversation, they just stand there at the counter waiting for the shrimp. You engage them with something, and very few of them buy what's on sale. But anybody familiar with the drug dopamine? It's a feel-good drug. Did you know that the process of actually choosing to buy something, picking something to buy, releases dopamine? So when you can engage somebody, it makes them feel good. You have to find out what it is that they're looking for and show it to them. They begin to release dopamine, and then you show them 2 other things. They'll buy one of the other 2. You can call that an oversimplification. It's 25 years of experience. Okay? It works. Or you can, focus on the other 20%.
See, just like Google, you're searching for everybody, looking at everybody's stuff, what they buy.
Yeah, you have to. You have to look at what they buy. You have to look at what got them there. And you analyze those things. You do. People will come to a website for something interesting, for a cartoon, for a video, to be entertained. And then you can give them what they really need somewhere else. Make sense? Okay. Well, thanks for attending. Again, thank you to our sponsors, Fantasy Performing Arts Center and Com Center Virtual Office. I do want to ask you guys a question, though, just some feedback. I've had a lot of people that said they were going to come here. I know the traffic was definitely an issue today, but because there were a lot more people than this that said they were going to be here. Does how many of you find that the time of day is a negative thing?
That's just me.
Okay. What about the length of the session? What about the location? Okay. So the 4 of you that are here, this works fine.
Well, first off, I might take people that signed up, if they did, whatever your best, send out an email reminder to them, like yesterday, because I only found out about it yesterday also.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just a chance to have a meeting between us.
Yeah, I actually do that.
And but I mean, people are funny, because I promised somebody I'd be somewhere Thursday, and I now just realized I got another commitment, so I got to email them back and say, hey, I'm not going to make it. And it's just one of those after-hour parties that, meet and greets. But doing it out of kindness changed some of my attitude. But, a lot of people don't remember, or they say things like, but, presentation fine, but for a lot of people, keywords can be intimidating, because it's a brand new area for everybody.
Yeah, I guess I think the topic was part of it, because a lot of people don't. Even though people kept asking me to do something on keywords, I think it is overwhelming.
Well, but I think you might want to dumb it down a little bit better for people like me. But I think the presentation is great. I did learn some things, and but it's just one of those things.
It's still a little over the top.
Yeah.
Now, I know you found out about it in person. How did you find out about the event?
Same place. He was where we were yesterday.
Okay. But you were already registered when you heard about it yesterday.
Yeah, it wasn't yesterday.
Okay. So was it email, or because you heard? I told you about it in person.
You said something.
Yeah. How did you find it?
I work here.
You work here.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I did see it yesterday on Facebook.
Okay.
I was wondering how many did you get likes?
Oh yeah, we got likes. There was, I think, about 20,000 people saw the Facebook event. So we had coverage.
You can always have food.
How does Facebook,
Yes, he works here.
when it says 300 like this, how is that determined?
People that actually click like. There are impressions.
Okay.
There are likes. There are shares, and then there is engagement. An impression means somebody actually viewed it.
And how do they determine that?
It's
Let
not.
me tell you why I asked that question. I do photographs. I do Disney photographs for a Disney fan site. And I had a photograph on there of Gaston leading a little bell around his fountain at the Magic Kingdom.
Okay.
Over 1,000 people looked at that picture. How do they determine that 1,000 people? Do they actually click on that picture and open that picture up?
No, that's engagement. Because there are clicks also. That's part of the engagement. The impressions are purely, it's an algorithm based on if somebody's scrolling through the timeline and they stop, whatever's right there in front of them, you have to stop for a certain period of time in order for that to be considered an impression. If you click on it, you've engaged with it. That's the lowest level of engagement. You just clicked on it. You can like it, which is a higher level of engagement, because now the fact that you liked it means that Facebook is going to begin showing that to your connections. Okay? Because not everybody sees the same thing on Facebook.
Oh, I know. I have 2 computers, and I don't get the same thing on both computers.
If somebody shares it, then even more people in your following will see it. But then if you actually type a comment, if you like it, type a comment, share it on your page, that's the highest level of engagement. And then if somebody else, one of your friends, shares it on their page, likes it, and that's when things begin to go viral. Now, if it's with a business page, different things are going to give different levels of engagement. And one of the new Facebook algorithms that rolled out in January was text updates from a Facebook page. The engagement was so low that in January Facebook was showing them. So if the Manatee Performing Arts Center does a text update reminding people of what show starts tonight, nobody sees it unless they actually go to your page. They will not show that in anybody's timeline because nobody engages with it.
Because nobody was engaged with it?
Nobody was engaged. The lowest level that you can do now to get somebody to get Facebook to show it to some people is to at least include a URL back to the topic of what you're talking about. If that URL happens to have a featured image, so that Facebook can now show a small image with the description of the web page, with the text and URL that you showed, that's the lowest level that Facebook will show in people's stream from Facebook page now. If you post a text update, or if you put a photo or a video update, those are the things that most people are going to see. It takes a lot more time to do that, but Facebook, the same way as Google, Facebook wants interesting, relevant content. If nobody's engaging with a text update, they just get shown.
So, dumbing down the idea, going back to his comments question, he had 1,000 likes for taking pictures.
No, it wasn't likes. It said 1,000 people saw this post.
Okay, so, but I'm going to use the numbers up there, even though I know probably not everybody's on Facebook, although I've got everybody is. But he took a picture, posted on Facebook. Somehow, 5 people got a hold of it and commented that they liked it, or they viewed it, or they made a comment on it. That went to all their friends on Facebook, and then those people either looked at the picture, or deleted it, or forgot it. But if a couple of those people made a comment, then it went.
That's engagement. If 1,000 people saw the post, what exactly that means is you posted it on Facebook, and there were of all the timelines that it was shown to, 1,000 people saw it. There's nothing to do with engagement, but that tells you, okay, I posted this at a time of day that 1,000 people were active on, 1,000 of your followers were active and saw it.
So just the fact that they paused their timeline right there, that registers with the Facebook people? Oh, those nosy bastards.
Well, you missed out as part of what Google's doing. We're going to fire the NSA and just hire Google.
Yeah.
There are no secrets online. Whatever you're doing online, there's a whole host of people that know about it. And it can be found. Anything you post online, you cannot remove it. You can't. You put something online, it's there for forever.
Well, I've noticed how Facebook, the things that you look at or talk about, suddenly ads start showing up for that. So one of my friends skated in the Olympics yesterday, and so we've been talking about that. And all of a sudden, all down this side are Olympic. Buy sweaters, buy mittens, buy.
You could have had that conversation in email, and those ads would have started showing up. That's what we were talking about earlier.
Remember that baby picture where your mom had you on the bear skin around with your butt naked with your butt sticking in the air? In the old days, she could only show people that. Now she can post it on Facebook, and it'll be there until.
And I'll get got bearskin rug ads over here.
Yeah, well, that not only that, you know, if you do it for your grandchildren, and put it on Facebook, now that you'll be there, and so they're your age.
100 years from now, when somebody goes into Ancestry.com, your butt's going to show up.
Yeah.
You just say,
Yep.
100 years old.
No, I said, in 100 years old.
Yeah, no secrets.
That's
allowed.
only 10 years.
Anything you put out there.
Yeah, it is.
Did you see Shirley Temple?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thanks for showing up. Next Thursday morning, I'm doing a presentation, a marketing presentation at Com Center 70, and we've got basically almost an event every week now that I'm speaking somewhere on some part of marketing or the sales management side of things that you need to know to grow your business, get more exposure.